Dr. Kristy Taylor. I am the founder of Work Solutions LLC, and tonight we are going to be live for the next 30 minutes, and I am answering questions that were submitted to me as well as questions that appear in the comments. And this is not just the normal, when we do these career coaching sessions or these live coaching sessions, this is not just your normal everyday, hey, like, let me give you a resume writing workshop. I can answer those questions too, but this is also to help you to be able to navigate things in the workplace. So I'm just jumping in for a little bit, and we'll do this a couple of times a month to engage you in conversation. But I'm excited to be here tonight. We just wrapped up the August portion of our Beat the Bot series. And so let me just share a little bit about myself and who I am, and then we'll jump right into this. So this is our Ask a Career Coach series, and you can drop your questions in the chat. I am monitoring the chat. Usually my business manager is there in the chat as well. And we are going to be answering your questions live. And so you'll also be able to come back and watch this video on YouTube or wherever you may be, but we are streaming right now from YouTube, Facebook, as well as LinkedIn. So, all right. So drop your questions. I'm happy to answer them for you. A little bit about me and who I am. Again, I am a certified professional career coach through the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches, 20 years of experience. So as an HR professional educator, my specialty areas is in training, education, and coaching. I've been teaching, training, educating, coaching for over 20 plus years. I'm the founder of Work Solutions. I'm not only certified as a coach, as a career coach, but also as an executive coach and workforce development professional. And you can see a little bit about my career. I'm a military veteran, still currently serving, as well as some of the organizations that I remain active in. I just want to say we're literally hopping off the heels of our Beat the Bots workshop series. So I'm jumping in here and I have the questions pulled up. I'm going to pick up from last week. But I also want to make sure that you understand who we are in this organization and the type of work that we do. So we are career branding and career resiliency organization who we specialize in also in diversity focused events, because really we're all about creating a work ecosystem, as I like to call it. And so you'll be able to hear more about that as time goes on. All right, guys. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to go back to the main slide here. And I'm going to pick up with some questions that I had come in last week. And the first question is, and I actually talked about this a little bit in my workshop tonight. This question is coming in from Melissa. So again, if you have a question, all you got to do is go to the contact area of our site. You can submit your questions there. I'm happy to answer them. You can attend our free workshops, or you can just submit a question here live, and I'm happy to answer it. All right, so the first question comes from Melissa. Melissa says that she took 5 years off, and hopefully I didn't cover this question before, but she took 5 years off to raise her kids. Now she's trying to re-enter in the workforce. And one of the things that she mentions here, she says, every time I apply, I feel like my gap is held against me. How do I convince employers that I still have value, even though I've been out of the game for a while? So first of all, I'm going to answer this from two perspectives. Okay. So one, when you're in a situation where you are a caretaker, you should always be doing something to continuously, I highly recommend, right, that you're continuously doing something to keep yourself upskilled and current in whatever the field that it is that you were in. Always stay active. It can be volunteering, engaging, but that is just something that you need from, is the health educator part of me is kind of like from an intellectual development piece. You really just need that for yourself. And so that if you were a caretaker, you were a caretaker, and there are skills in that, being able to manage a schedule, being able, you managing projects, you managing operations, right, of your household, but still you want to stay current within your field. So the part that I really want to say here is, if you can't just be straightforward with that employer to say, look, I was a caretaker, I was a home, I was a full-time mom, I was a full-time caretaker with my parents, for my parents. Is that somewhere you really want to work? I think the context of the question really is, when you talk about re-entering the workforce, what you're experiencing, Melissa, is not any different from what other people experience. But I want to just remind you guys that as you go out there into the workforce, you're not only interviewing for a company, but for a company, you should also be interviewing that company, right? So if I go to a job interview and I've taken a 5-year gap, and I've explained it in my cover letter, I've accounted for some of the things that I've done through that 5 years, and I'm being upfront and saying, like, hey, I was a caretaker, I was a full-time mom. Prior to that, I did this, and this, or maybe I'm new to the workforce, because I've had folks, who've had that experience. So if you explain that, and then you still have to be worried about folks turning their eyes or face or looking at you funny, it is that might not be somewhere that you want to work. I'm just being honest with you. All right. So, my formal answer to you would be career gaps. They happen for so many reasons. I've just explained that to you, but the biggest thing is that you're keeping yourself active because you need it for your own intellectual development, right? So you just need to be upfront and honest about this is what was happening during that period, but don't go into too many details. Maybe you were a homemaker, you're a caretaker. You don't have to go into any details that would kind of get into the HIPAA space, right, of being overly personal with this. But just remember that when you're in those spaces, there are skills that you're doing, like managing householders, organization, budgeting, you're multitasking. So you still have a lot of value that you can bring to the workplace. So, talk about the things that you were doing for professional development to keep yourself active in your community leadership. Maybe that's what you have on your resume as a section, volunteerism, professional development, the things that you were doing so that you could be able to close the gaps in your resume. But you really probably don't want to be a part of something where if I'm telling you the truth up front, this is what I did, right? That organization is probably not going to be conducive to, what you would want in a work environment anyway. Because again, employers, they care less about the gap when they see the confidence, the preparation, and the clear value that you can bring to the table. So you're still going to have to go in there and sell yourself just like anybody else. But that's why I say, don't let the gap just be a gap. Always do something. And so if you don't feel like, okay, I can go out and take a class, there are classes on Udemy that are like $15. You know what I mean? There's a lot of free classes released by Harvard and Coursera. So there's always something that we can do. Just be actively engaged in something. Okay, so I hope that helps. I just wanted you, Melissa, to look at the organizational culture. So if you're up front, and most employers are going to respect it. People that are interviewing and hiring for jobs, they want people that's going to tell them the truth up front. If you explain it and they got a problem with it, that's not the organization for you. All right, because it's very logical that people are going to be caretakers. All right. Or choosing to raise their family, or, you might be married to somebody in the military. So maybe you were a military spouse, right? And as they move, you move. So it can be hard to maintain a career like that, right? All right. So next question. Next question comes from Ethan. He said, I just graduated a few months ago, and I'm paying attention to the chat. Ethan says, I graduated a few months ago, and honestly, I have no idea what I want to do. All right. Everyone keeps telling me to find my passion, but I don't even know what that is. How do I figure that out what career path is right for me? Okay, again, I'm that coach that's going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you like this is going to be some storybook. Either you got to really identify what it is that you really like and what you are passionate about. And it might not be a career title itself, right? It might be certain aspects or portions of the job. And I would even say this, if you guys are tuning in to this and maybe you are in the middle of a career pivot, I want you to think about that. What are the attributes of doing or performing a role that you like? And then you're going to have to go out there and get some experiences. If you kind of know the space that you want to work in, apply to those type of roles and then just kind of figure it out. But I wish that I could say, hey, if there's a test that you can take. There's plenty of free career online tests. That's why I don't charge people for that stuff, right? There's an assessment that you can take, and you can take like the ONET assessment. And maybe if you're not familiar with that, I will pull it up and drop it in the chat in a moment. But you can do things like the ONET assessment, and then that'll kind of the skills and value assessments offered by ONET, which is a government-funded assessment. So there's a lot of things that you can take free of charge. But I'm going to tell you, identify the true attributes of a career or job that you would want, and apply for roles or different diverse roles. It's going to put you in that space so you can get some exposure as well as work experience, right? So the three things I'm going to suggest to you, Ethan, is one, that you do the self-assessment. Okay. And so let me drop that in the chat so that if you're listening or you come back to this, I want you to take a look at ONET. Right there, again, there's not a need for you to be paying for $3,000 for a test that you can take for free. Let me just drop this in the chat. So if you're trying to figure out what your next steps are, use ONET as an assessment. Sorry about that, guys. I'm using two screens here. All right. So the next thing I want to tell you, Ethan, is just, okay, self-assessments. You can leverage a resource like LinkedIn. There is a site that I kind of do a little mentoring on. Let me tell you what that is. But you can use LinkedIn, reach out and do some informational interviews, right? And just like, okay, if you know the areas where you really are interested in, look for internships, reach out to people, do some networking and some informational interviews and kind of learn more about their careers. I cannot find that site at the moment, but I have your email address and I will send it to you. All right, so self-assessments, informational interviews, because what I want you to do, Ethan, is I want you to talk to some people and let them know these are the kind of roles that you're figuring out. Yeah, right. So Camilla is saying figuring out with your career for you, right? Exactly. So I think that so many of us get told, hey, you go to college and you're going to know exactly what you're going to do, right? When you go, some people have that mind frame, right, Camilla? But the thing about it is, for some people, like in Ethan's case, you might have to try different things. So that's why I say take an assessment, but really just sit down and think about what do you like to do and what are you really, really good at? Because the job might not be a specific title, right? It might be you doing a specific thing. And so you might have to try different things, but you have that space to do it. Somebody who's fresh out of college. And then the other thing I'm going to tell you, Ethan, is to start small. So you take an assessment, interview people, but really just think about what it is that you want to do and the direction that you want to go. And that might take some time. You might have to try some different things. Take internships, do temp roles, do projects, volunteerism, because the clarity that you're going to get, guys, and this is so true. Some of y'all who are listening in, you might be, again, the federal government, or you were in one of these roles for 20 years, or you might have just been like a nurse or something, or a teacher, and you got burnt out doing it, right? In order for you to get some clarity on what you want to do next, you got to take action. So that does not necessarily mean that everything that you go out and do in the process of pivoting or trying to figure out your next steps, that is going to be 100% the absolute thing that you end up with. There's that little transition. There's a book, they say, when you're kind of in that hallway to your next steps, sometimes it can be hell, right? That's just the point of you just trying to figure it out. But just know that clarity comes from action. You're going to learn by doing and experiencing different things. The more you try, that's what you're going to see what really fits. And that's why I say the first thing you really want to do, whether it's a formal assessment or just assess yourself, find out really what it is that you like to do. And I would also encourage you to do some things that you may not think you like to do, because give that a test. Because I know I was hesitant about some things that I'm doing now. I used to be like, hey, I don't want to do, about my role in the military, to say, hey, like, I don't want to go there or work in this type of position. And then the moment I open my mindset up to be able to move in these types of roles, like, I'm like, oh my God, I actually really enjoy it, right? So don't also be closed-minded, because if you're just absolutely dead set against something, I understand, but maybe there might be something you just have not been exposed to. Give that a shot. It doesn't always mean you got to go and get that as a job. You might do it as a project or volunteer. So I think, Ethan, I've given you kind of a sense of direction of where you can go. Assess yourself, interview people, use like free resources, come to networking events, network on LinkedIn, reach out and interview people, do some speed networking, right? And then just start small. You might take that internship. You might do a temp role. I would encourage you guys, if you are in that transition, even if you got experience in your career, volunteer to work on projects, volunteer to do some things that's different, that's going to keep you active and engaged, kind of like I was telling Melissa earlier. All right, so what I see in the comments. All right, so again, this is, you can ask me questions about resume writing, whatever, anything in your career. Anything in your career, and I'm going to help you with it. Okay, let's see. Perfect, because we got a burnout workshop coming in a couple of weeks. This is Priya. Her question is, she says that I've been in healthcare for 15 years. Lately, I feel completely burnt out, but I can't imagine starting over in a new field. So how do I make this career? How do I make a career change without losing everything that I've worked for? I feel like this is an example of, this is a great example to follow up with Matt. Okay. All right. So first of all, Priya, burnout is real. And one of the things that I work on, even as somebody in education, is like, how do you support leaders who are burnt out and ready to transition without totally leaving everything behind? And if you work in somewhere like healthcare, or education is always going to be that feeling, right? But the good news is that you don't have to just throw everything away, because everything you built is the start of your pivot. And so what I want you to do is, I'm actually going to give you similar advice to what I gave Matt, is I want you to actually start by identifying what you actually enjoy. This is what I think makes me so different as a career coach. One, I'm not going to sell you a dream, because the bottom line is most of us, we have to work, right? And so there might be times where you're taking a role where you're in transition. Again, if you're like, most of my clients are here in the DC area, or you might be impacted by, maybe you had a layoff and you're having to pivot. You might take a role that's transitional. Don't look at that like it's your end all be all. Go with it, go with what you can learn from that situation and keep it moving. And so the same thing I'm going to tell you, Priya, I want you to start by identifying what brings you joy. You're 15 years into your career at this point. So there are some things that bring you joy, right? And if you like mentoring, maybe younger staff, if you like solving problems, all of these are what we call soft skills that you can move on and bring with you to a different role. I have a lot of nurses who I don't want to do bedside care. I want to move into administrative and teaching. And you might not think about it, but if you've done some training and development, you served as a preceptor, those are all things that prepared you for that type of role. So identify what you really like, because if this is a great point too. You still have a job. And so I'm going to look dead in the camera and say this to you guys. If you have a job and you are planning a pivot, you're actually in a great space, because you can plan that pivot strategically, right? You can lay out, like, if you know that this job gives you a certain amount of money for professional development or whatever it is, you can actually plan your transition strategically versus having to, oh, I'm done, I'm just burnt out and done, right? Maybe before as you identify what it is that you really like and enjoy, maybe there's a certification that you can get that's going to allow you to start to leverage those skills and slowly transition out. Because remember that a pivot doesn't necessarily mean that you have to start completely over from scratch. You just need to repackage your skills for a new audience. So I'm actually going to stop right there, because I get a lot of that. We run this course called, this career pivot course with Work Solutions. And one of the things I say in this is like repacking, right? Let's say that you were in a totally different industry, and now, you were in a specific role, and now you have to go out and go to a totally different industry. There are some skills that are just transferable, guys, like project management, operations management, leadership, even your followership skills, your ability to get projects done, your ability to manage budgets. There are some things that the way you write your resume and position yourself as a strategic leader or, mid-level, whatever, those things are what's going to allow you to pivot. And so when I'm having people like, okay, I'm going to have a pivot completely out of my role. And in Priya's case, she's not necessarily completely pivoting out. She might move to administration and stop bedside. She might move into education. But what if you are in a position where you have to completely pivot and start anew? Because again, look, the age we're living in, you have to be open-minded. What I'm going to tell you is, I want you to look at the layout of your career. And I want you to kind of identify all of those skills that are general, like project management, the things you did and the things you really executed that show action, impact, result. Because remember, when you go into an interview, even from the point of career branding, when you're looking at the resume, the LinkedIn, you're showing people how you solve problems. This is why I see so many people are able to kind of go between corporate, nonprofit, especially like if you're a fundraiser or something like that. Because the bottom line for a fundraiser, for example, if you are working in education, institutional effectiveness, because I've seen this, corporate leaders go into these type of roles. The bottom line is, can you raise money? So I want you to think about what we call it in the military, the bottom line up, right? What's the main thing that when you're looking at a career pivot, when you look at the job description, what is it that they're really looking for? And even though you might not necessarily have the industry background, you might have the skills. And that's what you're going to have to upsell. That's what it really means to truly effectively be able to pivot into a different position. All right. Most of the time I tell people, start with your career bubble. What are your skill sets in a bubble and apply from there? But there might be a job where you're like, hey, I can do all of this stuff. I just don't have this experience. You're going to write that resume showing everything that you can do. And then however you can get as close as possible to maybe you engage in that industry, or maybe you took a course so that you can bridge the gap. That's how you're going to go about beginning that process of making the pivot. Okay. So back to Priya, just remember, Priya, that you've already built a toolkit for yourself because you're 15 years into the game at this point. So you just need that framework, kind of what I just sat down and talked about, because that's applicable to anybody who's going to make the pivot. You got to identify those skills that across any industry. As a nurse, I mean, you got effective communication. You know how to deal with different temperaments, people of different backgrounds. If you train people, so there's some areas you can go into. Now it's just about, what do I really want to do? And you not making an emotional exit from a job. And I was talking about this tonight. You're not making an emotional exit or grandstand because you know you want to leave. Plan it out. If you say, okay, in 6 months I want to be doing something different, plan it out. All right. Camilla says, mostly internships were ones if I was a student now that's in the field. Is there any other kind of internships? There may be. I mean, Camilla, you just have to kind of look at the organization, what they're offering. Most internships are going to be, so there's internships, externships, and fellowships. So you may want to look at fellowship opportunities, especially if you're career experienced. Because I've done this. I've ran those type of programs, and we've taken anybody from, because we've taken anybody from new college graduates to people with experience, because there were certain positions that we were looking to fill in those fellowships. The other thing, I'm gonna give you an example, Camilla, of something that I did. I went to volunteer match. When I first got out of the military, this was years ago, I needed some experience in health education, working as a health educator, right? Because that's what my degree was in. And even though I worked in healthcare administration, I needed some regular like health educator experience. You know what I did? I went to volunteer match. And I mean, sometimes people don't even recognize, like, you can get on boards, you can get high level positions and titles, and you might be volunteering 15, 20 hours a month, 10 hours a month. But I leveraged that experience, and I was volunteering with the San Antonio AIDS Foundation. And that is literally how I leveraged and got experience in health education that moved me into a different role. So you got to be creative with it, right? So I'm not saying that there are not internships and stuff that are not there, but typically an internship is reserved for a college graduate, but there are fellowships, there's opportunities to join boards or be part of the organization. And you think about all of that, and you can literally take that stuff and parlay it into experiences that's going to beef up your resume, that's going to help you make that pivot. So think about what I just said. You want to make a pivot into a different direction, right? You can take courses to serve as a bridge, identify all of the soft and hard skills that's going to, that'll really sell you to that organization. Like, I'm a great fit for this position. And then you might do something like I did. Like I said, go to where you can find opportunity. Volunteer match, simple example. You did a little bit of volunteering, got some experience, wrote that up on the resume, and boom, that closed the gap for me to be able to make that transition. Because you would think, okay, healthcare, she was already working but that was an administrative role in the military. It was totally not what I would be doing in terms of supporting HIV testing and all of that stuff as a health educator, right? But you get the concept, and I hope that it helps you. Okay. Again, feel free to throw your questions in the chat. I'm going to go for about 10 more minutes here. I have a final question, which is from Chris. Chris says that I know this is everybody's. I've been working remotely for 3 years, and I feel like my network is shrunk. Have you guys ever felt like, hey, I mean, I love working from home, but I also know it can be very isolating. So I definitely get where Chris is coming from. He says, I want to grow my connections. I want to open up to new opportunities. And one thing, back to you, Camille, because I'm about to give the same advice to Chris. You got to join professional organizations. You got to network, right? And so Chris is saying, hey, networking online feels awkward. Do I have any tips? So I get it. Remote work, that's almost everybody's dream, but it can be very isolating. And Chris is, in his specific instance, he's saying like, hey, I'm working online all the time, and I don't necessarily want to network online because it feels awkward. But you can start there. That's your easiest, right? So this is what I'm saying. Like, the key is, if you want to get out, you can join groups like Meetup. A lot of my folks who come to me, they come through meetup.com, and that allows you to like meet people in person and stuff like that. You can look for, there are a lot of professional free groups on LinkedIn. You can look for those. And if they're localized, then there's opportunities for you to meet up in person and connect with them, right? The key is that if you're going to do this type of stuff, whether it's online or in person, you just need to really be consistent about it. And then you need to have an agenda, look for opportunities. I just kind of gave that advice to Camille, right? We go out and volunteer and engage. So instead of asking for a job, just ask for advice or insight. And then that's going to allow you to naturally network with people and get to know them. I know you guys go to school and you go through these classes and they go, you got to give people your elevator pitch, but you're not on Shark Tank. So your elevator pitch is really the natural flow of conversation, because most of the time when you're networking with people, Chris, whether it's in person or online, because I know they have people listening in, whether it's in person or online, like if I was to meet you and I shake your hand and I go, hi, my name is Dr. Taylor, Kristy Taylor, and I'm the founder of Work Solutions LLC. Like you just want to know that I want a cup of coffee or something. You know what I mean? Like you got to read the room when you're networking with people and not just go in and automatically give that elevator pitch. You really need to engage people with conversation, but I'm going to tell you what's really going to get you there. When you're connecting with people and they say I have a problem or a challenge, and maybe you have a resource that you can share. It literally could just be a web link, but maybe a tool or resources that you can share because you've used it before. That natural engagement with people is what's going to make people remember you. I'm going to highly recommend a book for you, Chris, called Forget a Mentor, Get a Sponsor, because that book I recommend it to everybody, all of my clients, because it's such a great conversation on, what does networking really look like when you're looking for support versus getting to the next level in your career, with just connecting with people versus a mentor versus somebody who's actually going to understand and advocate for you. And that simple thing like following through or offering that helpful recommendation, people are going to remember you with that. So you're going to have to get out, network with people on LinkedIn, find free groups, meetup.com, free, and get a chance to get in front of people, but let the conversation be natural. And don't just hit them with an elevator pitch or start asking for favors. Like really let it flow, right? And then people will get to know that you follow through on stuff, or just maybe you're a great conversationalist and great person. And then that's going to help it feel less awkward for you. Okay. And then a couple more comments. It says, I volunteer doing entry level Excel and social media, but when I see admin assistant posts like 11 tasks. So I think that the way that you structure your resume, depending on the type of job you're applying for, the fact that you do the Excel and the social media, that's great. Those are all skills. And you can leverage that volunteerism with work as work experience. But if they're asking for different types of tasks and you notice, like you might not be able to do every single thing, but just admin as an administrative professional, right? What are the general core skills that you're going to be able to have, which is usually managing schedules, being able to track projects. So you want to get yourself some experience in those areas so that you can be more holistic in the way that you're able to talk about yourself and describe yourself, whether it's through volunteering or even the work that if you have a full-time job and part-time job that you do. And that's going to help you position yourself better for employers. All right, guys, I run free workshops typically on Tuesdays or Thursdays throughout the month. I'm going to encourage you to drop into those workshops. If you got any more questions, you can drop those in the chats or comments, because I'm doing full work days coming out here, making sure also that I'm answering your questions and supporting you. So if there's not anything else, I want you to feel free to join us in our workshops that we host on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then also just wanted to quickly share what we have coming up on September 1st. We're going to be running an entire series the whole day. Everybody's off that day. Most people are off that day. So we did it on the day where everybody's off. We're going to do 90-minute workshops, 3 series. Resumes with Impact, crash course, and I'm going in-depth. Here's on how you write your resume. Then we're doing our famous LinkedIn playbook masterclass. This is not just any masterclass where I'm giving you 2 points on LinkedIn. No, I'm literally going end to end to help you to learn how to do this thing right. And then we're going to do the 90-minute career pivot, rebrand fast, and get noticed and move forward workshop, right? And so those are donation based, because all of this stuff that we do for free, we got to start paying for it, guys. Like running these meetup groups and all of this stuff, it is not free. Me coming on and jumping on, that stuff is not free. So it's a $7 donation. Pay what you can. We just want to be accessible to everybody. And then, of course, I'm going to tell you about our course, which is our Pivot Like a Pro course, which people are enrolling in and enjoying, because you get to connect. You go through the process of really learn how to brand yourself using all of the resources that we placed in the course. Our self-paced course includes a workbook, and you will get not one, but 2 30-minute sessions with me. And the reason why is because I've realized in working with clients, I want you to have 2 sessions. But because of that, though, after September the 1st, the price goes up, right? We're no longer doing this for $97 because I know the amount of value. Now, think about it like this. For me, I offer a lot of free advice. I offer a lot of stuff from the heart. But if you want a job, you're making 60, 70, 150, whatever, and you're not willing to invest $97 in yourself, then you're not ready for the pivot. Okay, that's the bottom line. You got to be willing to invest in yourself. Multiple payment options available. But again, free workshops every Friday, every Tuesday and Thursday, some form. In fact, what do we have coming up tomorrow? Jules is going to throw it in the chat. Tomorrow we're having a free Diversity Works workshop. That'll be actually a panel. I got like 6 experts. Everybody, all these folks are coaches. Some of them are millionaires. So I got like experts coming on. We're going to talk about resilient workplaces, because again, we're about building a career ecosystem and making sure this stuff is accessible to you. So Jules is going to drop that stuff in the chat so you can register and join us here. It'll be just like a Facebook stream as well. And then also on Monday, if you're a member of our Career Resiliency Network, we're hosting a free workshop with Kelly, where she's going to talk about burnout. So, we have a lot of things going, and we want to be here to support you. So feel free to reach out if there's any questions that you have, and I'll be back on in a couple of weeks answering your questions. And so if there's any more questions, you can also just submit those to the chat. So community, what I would love for you to do is to come to our free workshop series that we host called Beat the Bots, Writing an ATS Compliant Resume. I think that's going to help you to start there. And I think the next one is September 4th, and that's focusing on job descriptions. So if you're saying you couldn't find any entry-level office jobs, I want to see where you're looking and what you're doing. All right, guys, I'm going to end this stream, but thanks for coming in. Thanks for being active in the chat. Thanks for engaging. And I'll see you at our next free workshop or at one of our paid events. But I am here to support you, again, across many levels. And I love the work that I do. Have a great night.